they had the impression, it appears, that they were going to be told some information that you had about the DNC. How did they get that impression?
It's quite possible that maybe they were looking for such information. They wanted it so badly.
That was stunning. That was part of Keir Simmons' exclusive interview that we just heard with the Russian lawyer who met with Donald Trump's son and son-in-law during the heat of the campaign. Joining us now, ranking member of the House Select Committee on Intelligence, Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff of California. Also joining the table, the news and finance anchor at Yahoo, Bianna Golodryga. Congressman Schiff, in March, you said, quote, there is more than a circumstantial evidence that Trump aides colluded with Russia. In this email, one of those pieces of evidence, is this email evidence to you, or was this news to you? Had you known anything about this email in the past?
I can't comment on what's been presented to us, but obviously this warrants very thorough investigation. And when you look at the timetable, this is a month before the Russians start dumping information. They have derogatory information about Secretary Clinton. So if that report is correct, this email disclosed to the Trump campaign the truth, that the Russian government had damaging information, that they wanted to help elect Donald Trump. And it put certainly the First Family on notice of all of these facts. It makes all the denials we've seen since that much more unbelievable suspect. So certainly this bears a lot of investigation. These participants are all going to have to come before the committee. We're going to have to try to obtain any relevant emails or documents. But yet another, I think, rather stunning public disclosure.
You say stunning. Were you surprised by this disclosure?
Well, you know, certainly some elements have been. The shifting explanations by the Trump administration. First, there was, we never had any kind of meetings like that. And then there was, okay, we did have a meeting, but it was about adoptions. But then, of course, Paul Manafort, the campaign manager, is there. Why would he come to a meeting about adoptions? Then it's about the Magnitsky Act, which is a sanctions legislation that sanctions Russians who are engaged in human rights abuses. Then we learned that, well, actually, they went hoping to get damaging information from the Russians about Hillary Clinton. So the explanations continue to shift. This has been the course not just for Donald Jr., but for many in the Trump orbit. And all of it, I think, raises a lot of alarm bells for us.
Caddy.
So, Congressman, I want to ask you the question everyone is asking about this, and you may not know the answer to it, but is this collusion?
Well, certainly if the Trump campaign went to a meeting with the Russians seeking to enlist or receive the help of the Russian government in getting damaging information.
Which is what the trail of evidence and emails suggests is the case. Yes,
that would be a potential form of collusion, that they are going to coordinate with the Russians the receipt, the dissemination of damaging information. Again, this is still in the category of allegation that needs to be investigated. But here you have, you know, very direct potential evidence of the Russians communicating with the campaign. We have stuff that will help your campaign. We want to help your father get elected. Yes, that's potential evidence that goes on.
Would it be illegal?
It very well could be illegal. Now, clearly, if there was any kind of a quid pro quo, if they went into that meeting and suggested, well, you don't have the goods in the meeting, but if you come forward with something, then we'll help you with the Magnitsky Act. That, of course, would be illegal. But if they were soliciting or receiving essentially an in-kind contribution from a foreign government in a U.S. election, that would violate, I think, any number of laws.
Bianna.
Congressman, this makes me think of a scenario that played out about 6 months ago with Sally Yates when she was alarmed at potential compromise by the Russians against Michael Flynn when he knowingly lied about discussing sanctions with the Russian ambassador. What are the odds that you think the Russians could have been using this as compromise as well, knowing very well that this meeting did take place, though those within the Trump administration for months now have been denying any such meetings and said they'd never met with Russian officials?
Well, this is why I think we have to really get to the bottom of just what happened. What instrumentalities did the Russians use to try to exert influence? Because the most critical thing is, do the Russians have any information that they can hold over the head of the administration to influence U.S. policy? That could take the form of meetings they know took place, offers to give help they know took place. It could take the form of if they were engaged in money laundering with the Trump organization. I'm not saying this happened, but If it did, obviously that is something that could hold over the president and the First Family. We need to find out, did any of this happen? Because if it did, it could very well shape why the president approaches Syria the way he does, why he approaches Ukraine the way he does, why he approaches sanctions the way he does, why he says the things he says about we don't really know whether the Russians were involved. So obviously we need to get to the bottom of this. It would be the worst form of negligence for the Congress not to.
Mike.
So obviously you're going to want to have Donald Trump Jr. testify before your committee.
Yes.
Under oath.
Yes.
As part of that process, given what we know now publicly, where do you go as a prosecutor or as a congressman on this committee to get to intent?
Well, you know, I think first we try to get whatever materials that we don't already have in terms of documentation. Then we bring in the witnesses who set up the meeting. Clearly, there was an expectation on the Trump campaign, even from their own statements, that they were going to get some goods on Hillary Clinton. Why was, if that report is correct, why was that email sent? If this lawyer, and I would take everything she has to say, obviously with a huge grain of salt. We know that the Russians use sometimes private citizens, sometimes oligarchs or whatnot to do their business. They don't always use certified agents of the SVR. So we'll want to know what went into that. Why did the person who sent that email believe that the Russians were trying to help elect Donald Trump? What information did he believe that they had? There's clearly a backstory here that we need to get to the bottom of.
So, which leads to a second question that Caddy raised about collusion. What is the ultimate legal definition of collusion?
Well, see, we've been using collusion as a term to cover a lot of potentially problematic conduct. There is no statute that uses that term, or coordination, which is the term the FBI director more often used. The statute would be conspiracy. If you conspire with others to violate any number of laws, it is a crime. So if there's a conspiracy to violate the election laws and get help from a foreign power, if there's a conspiracy to engage in illegal quid pro quo, an act of bribery where you'll get help in exchange for legislative change on the Magnitsky Act, obviously that would be problematic. If there's any conspiracy to obtain illicit information, to steal the information, any number of those things could be a violation of law. Those are things that Bob Mueller will be looking at for the purposes of, do we bring a prosecution? But there are also things that Congress needs to look at in terms of what were the full range of actions taken by the Russians? Did they have the help of U.S. persons? And most important, how do we protect ourselves from this happening again? And if there is any leverage the Russians have over the president, we need to know about it.
Yeah, especially given the sanctions bill. Where does it stand right now?
Well, it has obviously overwhelming support in the Congress. I think this is true in both houses. The only issue is, will Paul Ryan bring it up for a vote? What kind of pressure is the White House exerting to prevent that from happening? I would expect that the pressure will be irresistible and we'll get to vote on it. But will we get to vote on the bill that came out of the Senate, or will we vote on a watered-down version? I think a lot of us, Democrats and Republicans, want to make sure that we get to vote on precisely what the Senate passed.
And your Republican colleagues are on board with wanting, in the House as well, with wanting a tough sanctions bill?
I think they certainly are. The question really is not what the members want. The question is what the leadership is willing to allow and how much pressure they're under from the White House.
And Congressman, of all the people that were participating in this meeting, one is currently tied to the administration. Paul Manafort no longer a part of this team, and obviously Don Jr., a private citizen as well, working with the Trump company. Jared Kushner, given what we now know, do you think that he should have a security clearance revoked?
Well, certainly it doesn't appear that a lot of the meetings that he participated in and the discussions that are alleged to have taken place weren't disclosed during his background check process. I would presume that from just the open source reporting. If that's the case, then I think he should have his security clearance reviewed and very likely revoked. You can't, I think, go into any kind of discussions or submit documents about whether you had meetings with foreign nationals and omit, for example, if it proved to be true, a discussion of wanting to set up a secret back channel with a foreign adversarial power. So for anyone else, they would absolutely have their security clearance revoked. Obviously, the agencies that are the holders of that clearance are in a very difficult position.
So Donald Trump Jr. just tweeted, and he says, Congressman Schiff, media and Dems are extremely invested in the Russia story. If this nonsense meeting is all they have after a year, I understand the desperation. Is that all you have?
Well, there's an awful lot more that's even in the public domain. But of course, the evolving accounts from Don Jr. don't inspire a lot of confidence. This is someone who was very adamant, never had in these meetings, never had any kind of help or offers of help. This is preposterous. He was making the same argument before. Of course, he's had to evolve his story many times since, and I'm sure will evolve it many times in the future. So I don't give that a whole lot of credit.
All right, ranking member of the House Intel Committee, Congressman Adam Schiff, thank you very much for being on with us this morning. And Bianna, stay with us.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.